Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. Today, I have Gerald Burnand, a senior data scientist at Azoic, and today we're speaking about advertisement and search engine optimization. So, welcome to the show, Gerald. It's such a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you, Catherine, for having me on your podcast. I'm delighted to be here with your listeners.
Yeah, definitely. And could you just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the audience more about your background?
Sure. My name is Gerald Burnand, senior data scientist at the Azoic. I started my career as a software engineer, and I've had many years of experience designing and developing software applications. I discovered the wonders of data science and machine learning while working at my previous company. We were developing web-scale search engine for partners around the world, and the team I was leading was working on language understanding and intention detection. My first contact with machine learning was around 8 years ago, when my group started introducing machine learning for our natural language processing pipeline. We started introducing naive Bayes models to classify pages that we were putting into our index. Over time, we ended up using machine learning for many more functions, such as lemmatization for Russian and Turkish, document classification, semantic disambiguation, as well as things like question understanding and answering. I have to admit that I have a soft spot for NLP. But for me, the key moment was when I was reading a paper that by Jeff Dean, was published in 2016 by Google. The paper was titled Large-Scale Deep Learning for Intelligent Computer Systems. He actually referenced work from another fellow at Google called Oriol Viniels. But the one part that the article was describing was advances in image tagging. That's where you put a piece of text next to an image. And a specific example that they had a sleeping baby, and the caption that the machine proposed was, "The baby is asleep next to a teddy bear." And to me, that the subtlety of that description just completely blew my mind. Why not say like the human with the eyes closed or pink furry toy? The nuance that the model demonstrated was really incredible for me. And it just looked like magic. I don't know if you ever heard the quote from Arthur C. Clarke. The third law says basically any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So that was for me, that was the case for me. It just looked like magic. So I fell in love with machine learning there and then. And I've spent all my time since then learning more about machine learning and trying to pull the magic veil a little bit further back. At Azoic, I work on a variety of projects related to ad optimization. That's our ad tester product, and also SEO and our upcoming product called Leap.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's very clear that you're very passionate about the industry and work that you're doing right now. And especially with this data science field, it's still very new with the corporate world right now. A lot of companies are still trying to utilize data science and implement more machine learning and AI, and just it's the hot new thing that everyone wants to do right now. And so how is the work that you're doing right now at Azoic, how are you trying to be more data driven here, and how are you incorporating more data science in the work that you're doing?
Okay. So I think we want to define first what data-driven means. Before joining Azoic, I was advising companies on how to deploy AI in their organizations. And I found that there are a few key elements that help shaping this data-centric culture and also promote the use of data science and machine learning in companies. First, we need to get support from the top. That's just essential because the data is power in an organization, and the politics can very easily create walls between the parts of the organization. You need to determine where your AI will fit in your organization. Do you want it centralized, like you have a data science department or data science group, or do you want it where the data scientists basically have a skill and you embed them in different departments and different groups? You also have to facilitate access to the data. The data scientists will very often find themselves trying to connect data sources that have never been connected before. So you need to facilitate that access to data across departments and across parts of your organization. And then you also want to educate all the different roles in your organization about what machine learning can do. Maybe the last point, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You should leverage existing data and machine learning platforms whenever it's possible. So I only joined Azoic at the beginning of 2020, and many things were already in place when I joined. I think there's a couple things we do right. First, we get support from the top. The data-centric culture starts at the top with our CEO. The company is a little bit over 10 years old, but it was built from the ground up around data as a critical asset. So we collect tons of data, we produce tons of data, and our platform makes decisions based on the data that we produce and consume. A core element of our product actually is called Big Data Analytics, and it provides analytics for our customers, online publishers, so they can base their business decisions on the data that we collect. Regarding where AI fits in the organization, our data scientists are embedded in groups during projects, so they benefit from the knowledge of domain experts in those different areas, whether it's SEO, relationship with customers, and things like that. That's really important to ensure that transfer of knowledge. We also meet regularly as a group of data scientists, and we share approaches, updates on the different projects that we make, and also try to promote best practices. In terms of data access, we have no organizational barriers, and I've never seen that done this way. So I think Ezoic is awesome in that respect. It's very easy to access any data from any part of the organization, and there's just no politics whatsoever that gets in the way. We could do better, I think, regarding education, and that's on us, data scientists. We have more work to do to raise awareness of the range of problems that AI and machine learning can help with. My goal would be that when we talk about a new feature in the organization, whether it's internal services or in our products, that the first thought is, how can machine learning help solve that specific problem?
Yeah, that sounds great. And of course, a lot of people are using machine learning and AI to solve a lot of their technology problems right now. And it's been advanced and innovative in the past couple of years and years to come as well. And with that, your company, you're making a product called, or you have a product called Ad Tester. And I wanted to kind of jump into that and talk a little bit about that. So how does analyzing ads kind of help with increasing your company's revenue and maximizing monetization overall?
Okay. So just first, the increase our revenue completely depends on us being successful helping our publishers, right? Ezoic gets basically a fraction of the revenues that's associated with the monetization of the websites. At a high level, what we offer is a suite of tools that the online publishers, so anybody who builds a website and produces content that they want to share with the world and where they want basically to make money out of people consuming that content, typically through advertisement. So those are the online publishers, our customers. So we build a suite of tools that helps basically improve both the engagement and the monetization of their site. We handle the technology to do so that they can spend more time building more content, creating content, and connecting with their audience. So Ad Tester is one of our flagship products in that respect. When trying to monetize a website, you have to strike the balance between engagement and monetization. So let's say you have a website and you show no ads on the site. Maybe the site is very engaging to your visitors, but you get no revenue. Let's say you go to the other extreme and you put ads everywhere. You will increase in the short term, you'll increase your revenues, but the site may become less user-friendly and eventually visitors will not come back. The consequence in the long run, your traffic will decrease and the revenues will decrease in turn, right? So the goal is to find the right balance between those two. And when it gets complicated is that the decision depends on many factors. It will depend on the visitor, their intention, why they come to your site. It will depend on the visitor, the device that they're using. Maybe it depends on where they live and maybe the time of the day. It will depend also on the content of the page, right? And how it's viewed. So Ad Tester is able to learn the optimal number of ads, the placement and size of those ads for different categories of users by using experiments constantly and observing how the user engages with the page. It will learn that from maybe a visitor that comes from a metropolitan area at 10 a.m. in the morning using a desktop browser, that this guy is okay with having 5 different ads shown on the page, right? And a different visitor that comes from the countryside to the same website, but at 5 p.m. in the evening, that maybe that guy would only tolerate 2 ads. So in summary, Ad Tester will learn the optimal ads, that number of ads to show, and the revenues without impacting the user engagement.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of great things right now with the Ad Tester. And I wanted to also jump into the other product that your company is working on, which is called Leap. Could you tell us more about what this product is and how it's benefiting your company?
Yep. So I'm very excited about that product also. But let me provide quickly, just a little bit of context for our listeners. So Google announced last year that they would start using metrics that they call the Core Web Vitals when ranking pages in Google search engine. The Core Web Vital metrics reflect how the page is displayed to the user, basically how fast the page is loaded, whether it flickers when it's being rendered on the page, or how long it takes for the user to be able to interact with the page. Google will start using those metrics beginning June of this year. Ezoic Leap is our brand new product, and it will help the publishers diagnose and solve website performance issues. It provides three major features. First, we give you the ability to visualize the Core Web Vital metrics for your website all the way down to the page level. The second is we can report which component in your technology stack might be causing the problem. And then finally, we can automatically solve many of the common performance issues with a click of a button. So if I dive a little bit deeper into those features, so we talked about showing the Core Web Vitals. We allow you to drill down to which page actually displays specific performance issues. And then we couple that big data analytics that I mentioned earlier, and can couple that with traffic information. So you can focus on pages that have the most problem, or maybe get the most traffic, and you can basically narrow down where to focus on to spend your time to solve problems. Ezoic Leap also provides a unique tool that scans the site and detects all the various components that you use in it. This includes the hosting, content management system. For example, you use maybe WordPress or Wix or some other system, what theme you use, the plugins, JavaScript libraries, and more things. So for each component, Leap will provide a scorecard and will tell the publisher whether the component is likely to cause performance issues. And then we also have a rating. Components are rated from green all the way to teal, green, yellow, red, teal. And if a problematic component is identified, we have the ability to recommend alternative components that will provide similar functionality, but without the performance hit. The last thing that I mentioned before is that Leap has the ability to solve many of those problems with a single click. We have a facility that basically will solve automatically things like CSS loading issues, optimize image size, cache the various parts of your website in the content delivery network, merge and compress JavaScript, etc. So this is ideal for publishers because, again, they don't have to become an expert at the technology. They can focus their time on connecting with their audience and building great content.
Yeah, that's great. And what are some things you normally look for when analyzing sites that maybe have poor performance, since your company is all about kind of the speed and just overall looking at different websites and building these websites. So how can they kind of improve, and how can the work that you're doing improve the poor performance for these websites?
Yeah. So there are many factors, as I touched on before, that influence how a site performs, what kind of hosting you use, what technology you use, like the CMS, the theme, the plugins, etc. One other factor is basically the type of content you're hosting. If you're hosting videos or images, maybe it has a higher latency than if it's just plain text, right? And then there's the visitor. The visitor has a specific device. The device maybe has a slow processor or not enough memories. It takes more time on some mobile device to render a page than it would on your desktop. So there are many, many components that influence the performance. So the question of how you go about detecting that's really the crux of the problem. And that's very much a data science problem. What you want to do is you want to be able to identify the problematic technologies. If you keep in mind that those performance metrics, the Core Web Vitals, they're not measuring specific components, they're measuring the domain or the website as a whole, or the performance of an individual page on the website. And so the problem for us is to go from those domain level metrics and be able to connect them to specific technologies. Think that a website has many different components. It uses WordPress, maybe a theme with several plugins and things like that. So how do you single out a specific piece of that technology stack that is causing the performance issue when you have so many things going on your website? So Leap monitors tens of thousands of sites. And so what we can do is we can connect the dots and develop statistical models that will identify the technologies that are most likely culprit. Right? If you find that a technology predominantly is featured on sites that have very bad core web vitals, then that raises suspicion, right? Especially if you don't find that technology being used in any site that have good core web vitals, your suspicion is further raised. So that's one element. And once we have identified suspicious technologies, we can go and confirm whether or not it causes problem by running the experiment in our lab and measure how much of a problem the technology actually is. So that's the confirmation step, where we can actually determine true causal relationship, not just correlations. One analogy is in the medical domain that I find useful to think about, which is, how do you determine which genetic mutation might cause a particular rare disease, right? You have tons of genes, and then you have a bunch of people who have a particular condition, and you're trying to basically find which gene mutation might be related to that. And that's what we do.
Yeah, it's very clearly a data science problem that you have to solve, but it's great to see that data and analytics can really help solve these issues that kind of come up. And I wanted to say thank you so much, Gerald, for joining us today on our show. We, the Data Standard, we're trying to build a community where everyone can just network and collaborate with each other. So what is something that we can help you do?
So we're always looking for great talents. So if anybody listens to the podcast, is interested in working in a company that's fast-paced, where you're empowered to make a difference every day, you want to work at the intersection between web technologies, both front-end and back-end, big data and data science, you can reach out to me. We're located about 45 minutes north of San Diego in Carlsbad. If any of your listeners happen to be online publishers also, and if they want to reach out to learn more about the products we have, we'll be happy to connect them also. And if in turn there is anybody we can help or that I can help, please get in contact with me, and I'll be happy to see what I can do.
Yeah, perfect. And how can they get in touch with you and connect with you online?
So the easiest would be through my LinkedIn profile. It's probably going to be associated with the at the bottom of that podcast. So just feel free to reach out to me, gburnand@ezoic.com, or through LinkedIn if you want to connect.
Yeah, perfect. And to our audience, for more information on the Data Standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. So thank you so much, Gerald, for joining us. It was so great to speak with you and just learn more about your company and the products that you're working on.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.